I'm half Irish. I'm disappointed in the country of Ireland right now that this is their representative.
Every fight has its moments, but some moments leave you scratching your head and wondering, what were they thinking? Well, we are going to look at some of these moments from the brutal sport of UFC. Number 10. O'Malley vs. Sukumthat. Our first no-brain moment comes from Andre Sukumthat at UFC 222. He was up against Sean O'Malley, who was dominating the fight with his usual style, throwing a variety of kicks and strikes that had Sukumthat on the defensive. O'Malley's skill and creativity in the octagon were on full display until disaster struck for him in the third round. He injured his foot so badly that he couldn't even stand properly. This should have been a golden opportunity for Sukumthat to change the course of the fight. Any logical approach would suggest keeping the fight standing, where O'Malley was clearly compromised and could barely hop around. But no one else could have predicted what happened next, except maybe Sukumthat. In a twist that defies conventional fight strategy, Sukumthat decided to take O'Malley down to the ground. This move baffled commentators, fans, and probably even O'Malley himself. By taking the fight to the ground, Sukumthat allowed O'Malley to use his strong grappling skills and essentially neutralize the advantage he had over an injured opponent. O'Malley managed to fend off Sukumthat's attacks on the ground and held on until the final bell. Despite his injury, O'Malley won the fight by unanimous decision. Number 9. Moraes vs. Sterling. The fight between Marlon Moraes and Aljamain Sterling at UFC Fight Night 123 in Fresno was one to remember, but not necessarily for the reasons Sterling might have hoped. As exciting as the bout was, it became infamous for a moment that can only be described as a lapse in judgment on Sterling's part. In the opening round, both fighters were feeling each other out, trading strikes and testing each other's defenses. Sterling seemed ready to engage Moraes in a tactical battle. However, things took a dramatic turn when Sterling made a critical error that led to one of the most talked about knockouts in recent UFC history. Sterling attempted a ducking maneuver right as Moraes threw a high kick. Unfortunately for Sterling, his timing couldn't have been worse. Moraes' knee connected flush with Sterling's jaw, knocking him out cold in an instant. But the image of Sterling crumpling to the mat was as shocking as it was decisive. It was a brutal knockout that left fans and commentators in stunned silence, quickly followed by an outpouring of reactions on social media. Instead of slipping or blocking, Sterling's misjudgment put him right in the path of Moraes' devastating knee, and this was a textbook example of how such miscalculations can have severe consequences. Number 8. Yan vs. Sterling. To win is the main goal of any fighter, but going against the rules wouldn't get you anywhere. Petr Yan learned this the hard way. His fight against Aljamain Sterling at UFC 273 made Sterling a victim of an illegal knee strike from Yan. During the fight, Yan found himself in a strange situation. He made a series of strategic blunders that left many fans scratching their heads. It was round 4, and Yan had Sterling pinned against the cage. But instead of maintaining his advantageous position, Yan attempts a wild flying knee. Yep, but Sterling dodged it and Yan lost his dominant position. The highlight of Yan's questionable tactics came when he tried to out-grapple Sterling. It was like trying to outswim a fish. Sterling easily reversed Yan's attempts and controlled the grappling exchanges, securing a body triangle and working for a rear naked choke, dominating the round. In the end, Sterling won by a split decision. Number 7. Woodson vs. Saldana. The fight between Sean Woodson and Luis Saldana at UFC 278 was a wild and chaotic battle, filled with unexpected moments and controversial decisions. Woodson faced off against Saldana, who was coming off a win. The fight took an unusual turn in the first round when Saldana landed a swift hook that knocked Woodson down. Instead of taking advantage of this, Saldana bizarrely walked away, pointing to the center of the octagon. Moments later, he repeated the mistake, following up with an illegal knee to Woodson's head while he was still down. This move not only stopped the fight temporarily, but also resulted in a point deduction for Saldana, leaving everyone confused about his strategy. The rest of the fight saw Woodson becoming more cautious, while Saldana's initial sharpness faded. By the third round, both fighters were visibly tired, and Saldana's repeated spinning back fists missed their mark, further exhausting him. The judges' scorecards reflected the chaotic nature of the fight, ultimately leading to a split draw. Number 6. Dern vs. Marcos. Mackenzie Dern vs. Randa Marcos at UFC Vegas 11 was one for the books, but not just for the impressive win by Dern. It had a moment that left fans shaking their heads. The fight started with Dern, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu wizard, facing off against Marcos. Now, everyone knows Dern's game is all about taking the fight to the ground and hunting for submissions. But what happened next was pretty wild. In a scramble early in the first round, Dern slipped and fell onto the mat. Most fighters would see this as an opportunity to keep the fight standing and avoid Dern's lethal ground game. However, Marcos made a puzzling decision. Instead of keeping her distance and using her striking advantage, she decided to follow Dern to the ground. This move was like jumping into a shark tank with a fresh cut on your leg. Dern quickly took control, transitioning smoothly and locking in an armbar. Marcos tried to resist, but within minutes she had no choice but to tap out. Such a crazy move. Number 5. Alvarez vs. Poirier. This fight between Alvarez vs. Poirier was like watching a real-life action movie unfold in the octagon, with everything from slick submissions to heavy punches. The fight started strong, with both fighters trading blows and showcasing their skills. But it was in the second round that things took a turn. Alvarez was in a dominant position, raining down punches on Poirier, who was trapped against the fence. He had Poirier right where he wanted him. Then, out of nowhere, Alvarez threw a 12-6 elbow, a big no-no in MMA rules. The referee had no choice but to step in and reset the fight, taking Alvarez out of his advantageous spot. From there, Poirier saw his chance and didn't waste a second. He came at Alvarez with everything he had, landing a series of strikes that ultimately led to a TKO victory. The illegal elbow was a game changer, and many fans and analysts couldn't believe Alvarez made such a basic mistake at such a crucial moment. Number 4. Hooker vs. Poyez. Hooker vs. Poyez at UFC 281 was an intense fight in the lightweight division, filled with thrilling moments. Dan Hooker, aka the Hangman, was looking to bounce back from recent losses, while Claudio Puez aimed to continue his rise in the division. The fight started with Puez showing some promise, but Hooker quickly took control. But the real head-scratcher moment of the fight was when Puez, who has a strong ground game, tried to repeatedly pull guard and go for leg locks, even when they weren't working. At one point, he just laid on the canvas, almost inviting Hooker to engage on the ground. Hooker, being the seasoned fighter he is, took full advantage and delivered a TKO victory in the second round. Number 3. Hall vs. Topuria. When Ryan Hall stepped into the octagon against Ilia Topuria at UFC 264, the audience was just thrilled. Hall's strategy of rolling for leg locks over and over was his downfall. Instead of adapting, he kept trying the same move, hoping to catch Topuria off guard. Topuria, well prepared and composed, capitalized on this repetitive tactic. He avoided Hall's attempts and unleashed powerful strikes, eventually landing a brutal knockout in the first round. Number 2. Weidman vs. Rockhold. An unforgettable no-brainer from UFC 194 came when Chris Weidman took on Luke Rockhold in a middleweight showdown. The first round was absolutely insane. Weidman had his moments, landing some solid shots and keeping Rockhold on his toes. Rockhold, on the other hand, was methodical and precise, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then came the third round, and with it, a moment that left everyone's mouth wide open. Weidman, for reasons only he knows, decided to throw a spinning wheel kick. Now, don't get us wrong, a well-timed spinning kick can be a game changer, but this one was something else. Weidman's kick was slow and telegraphed, almost like it was happening in slow motion. It missed Rockhold by a mile, and before Weidman could even regain his balance, Rockhold pounced. He took Weidman down and unleashed a barrage of ground and pound. The aftermath was brutal. Rockhold pounded away non-stop, and though Weidman showed incredible toughness, the damage was done. The referee eventually stepped in, and Luke Rockhold was crowned the new UFC middleweight champion. Number 1. Gastelum vs. Adesanya. The Gastelum vs. Adesanya fight at UFC 236 was an absolute thrill ride. No doubt about it. It was the 5th round and it's been a war. Both guys are battered, bloodied, and running on fumes. Gastelum, who had been landing solid shots and pushing the pace, suddenly decides to go for a takedown. This move, in hindsight, was a tactical blunder. Up until that point, Gastelum had success with his striking. He rocked Adesanya with a head kick and kept the pressure on with his punches. But instead of sticking with what was working, he went for the takedown. Adesanya, being the savvy fighter he is, defended the takedown and reversed the position. This allowed Adesanya to take control and land some heavy shots, ultimately sealing the deal for him. And that's the end. Like and subscribe for more. Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.